Welcome to the debate. We are diving straight into the really high-stakes world of the Chinese new energy vehicle market. It's a true automotive battleground, frankly, where foreign automakers are really struggling to keep pace with the domestic giants. Ford, in particular, saw its sales peak way back in 2016, 1.27 million vehicles, but it's faced a very, very challenging path since then. Now, Ford is attempting a massive kind of localized pivot. They're launching the electric Bronco, a highly tailored NEV with both battery electric, the BEV, and an extended range electric vehicle, or EREV variant. And it's built specifically for Chinese consumers. So the central question for us today is this. Does Ford's deep localization, part of its China 2.0 strategy, does it represent a robust, necessary path for a foreign brand to achieve a genuine domestic comeback? Can it leverage its recent momentum? I'm going to argue that yes, a technical optimization and the sheer depth of this strategic localization provide the crucial competitive edge they need for success.
And I'll be arguing that despite the undeniable technical brilliance of the Bronco EV, you really can't fault the engineering on paper, the harsh realities of historical precedent, and, crucially, the inherent massive price disparity severely limit its market potential. Especially when you look at the overwhelming force of established domestic dominance, Ford is essentially walking into a segment that's already saturated with cheaper and arguably equally capable alternatives. Technical specifications alone, I believe, won't save them here.
Okay, so my position is really rooted in the success, or the apparent success at least, of Ford China 2.0. Now, for the listener, this is Ford's renewed commitment to developing vehicles in China for China. They're trying to move past that, well, frankly, failed strategy of just importing foreign models or slightly tweaking them. And the evidence for this shift is tangible. Ford has achieved 9 straight quarters of profit in China. The electric Bronco, importantly, is not an import. It's manufactured by the Jiangling Motors JMC Ford joint venture. It's really a showcase of this leveraged localization approach. And just look at the technical package they've put together. They seem to have really thought about range anxiety by offering the EREV variant. It uses a 1.5-liter engine, but purely as a generator, right? Offering an immense combined range, 1,220 kilometers.
Then the BEV model doesn't just use some generic battery. It integrates a substantial 105.4 kilowatt-hour LFP blade battery supplied by BYD's FinDreams. Now, this is a crucial strategic decision, you know? Ford is effectively partnering with their competitor to get the best local technology. Furthermore, the Fuyu ADAS system, which includes a roof-mounted LiDAR unit and over 30 sensors, it's specifically designed to handle complex Chinese driving habits and infrastructure. It's localized level 2 plus autonomy, and it's built, I think, to justify a premium price point.
Okay, I fully acknowledge the strategic necessity of using Chinese suppliers like BYD and integrating something like the Fuyu ADAS. I mean, they have to do that. But I'd frame that less as superiority and more as a kind of forced concession, necessary just to even reach the baseline level expected by today's Chinese buyer. The real problem, as I see it, is the premium Ford apparently intends to charge. The estimated starting price is somewhere between 300,000 and 400,000 RMB. It's a steep price, and it creates an immediate and I think likely fatal barrier, especially when you compare it to domestic off-road rivals. The Great Wall Tank 300, which offers a pretty similar balance of off-road capability and urban comfort, sits comfortably around 200,000 RMB. So Ford is asking for nearly double the price. And we have strong evidence from the market that appearance and even heritage are often secondary to cost and market fee in this fiercely competitive NEV space. Think about the XPeng G9, a technically sophisticated flagship, right? It suffered a significant blow upon launch precisely because its price and its, frankly, confusing specification layers were just too complex and too high. Ford really risks replicating that exact initial failure by aiming for such a high premium right out of the gate.
See, I think the Tank 300 comparison, while it's visually compelling, maybe misses the strategic differentiation that Ford is counting on to justify that premium. Foreign brands, realistically, cannot and probably should not try to compete head-to-head with BYD on basic price points or sheer volume. It's just not going to work. They must offer genuine market-specific value. And when we talk about leveraging BYD batteries and Fuyu ADAS, this isn't just, ticking a box for procurement. This is a strategic surrender, in a way, of some internal IP to gain crucial domestic credibility and, importantly, technical parity. And that price premium, I argue, is justified by the technology, particularly those dual powertrain options. That 1,220-kilometer EREV range, that's a specific engineered solution addressing what is arguably the primary pain point for premium buyers considering an electric off-roader. Domestic competitors often lag a bit in refining EREV tech or perhaps offer less comprehensive range solutions at that kind of potential price point. So Ford is targeting the consumer who is willing to pay more for robust technology that directly solves that range anxiety, differentiating itself from the mass market success of something like the Tank 300. It's positioned as a premium product for a specific premium buyer.
But isn't this reliance on a domestic competitor for core technology, like the BYD LFP battery, isn't that a bit of a precarious position? Ford CEO Jim Farley himself noted that competition is intensifying rapidly, leading to global EV overcapacity and lower returns overall. This price sensitivity isn't just a China thing. It's global, but it's most acute in China. So you're arguing that this specific combination of parts justifies potentially doubling the price of a proven, established rival? Localization of components is necessary. Absolutely, I agree. But is it strategically sufficient to overcome 100,000, maybe 200,000 RMB price gap in a market absolutely driven by aggressive domestic pricing? I'm skeptical. And let's delve into what the source material actually tells us about market fate, because this is where Ford's strategy looks, well, most vulnerable to me.
We have clear examples of highly similar cars having vastly different market outcomes based almost purely on pricing and clarity of the offering. The Li L9 and the Xpeng G9, for instance, which look remarkably similar in many respects, had vastly different fates, as the source puts it. The L9 was an immediate success, hitting over 10,000 monthly sales quickly, largely due to clear packaging and positioning. The G9, conversely, struggled initially precisely because of its high price and that confusing trim hierarchy.
Right. And if design similarity or technical capability guaranteed success, then the Beijing BJ80, which looks almost identical to the Mercedes-Benz G-Class, would be a premium bestseller. Instead, the price gap between those two vehicles can exceed a staggering 1.6 million RMB. It just shows that heritage and appearance are completely secondary to pricing and the brand cachet established within the domestic context.
Ford is betting heavily on the Bronco's legend, its heritage. But I fear the market might only see the sticker price.
Okay, but I would argue that the initial struggles of the Xpeng G9 weren't simply a matter of price alone. It was also about the poor execution of its initial configuration strategy, those confusing specs as you mentioned. That's something Ford seems to be actively avoiding, with this very clear BEV versus EREV differentiation. Furthermore, the comparison between the Bronco and the Tank 300, the source material notes it's more similar in spirit rather than appearance. The Bronco is a legendary vehicle, globally recognized, and heritage does matter, I believe, to a specific premium customer segment. And we actually know this demand exists, even at a high price point. Parallel imported 2.3 turbo Broncos, the petrol ones, already start around 410,000 RMB in China. That indicates there is a clear segment of buyers willing to pay a premium for the name, the image, and the capability. So the localized electric Bronco provides that desirable nameplate, but with modern, essential technology. The LiDAR, the 1,220-kilometer range potential that the mass-market Tank 300 simply doesn't offer. This feels like a very targeted effort to capture that specific premium enthusiast segment.
Let's address Ford's apparent stability then. Your point about the 9 quarters of profitability. I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that this profitability streak directly translates into likely volume success for a high-priced domestic EV like the Bronco. Ford's overall domestic sales volume has dwindled dramatically since 2016. That's the bigger picture. And the source material reveals a critical nuance here. Ford's reported exports from China rose by over 60% this year, reaching nearly 170,000 vehicles. So what this suggests is that Ford's profitability might be substantially supported by using China as a high-volume manufacturing base for exports to other markets, rather than achieving deep domestic market penetration with its new vehicles like this Bronco. If Ford is primarily profitable because its Chinese factories are humming along building cars for the rest of the world, well, that profitability tells us absolutely nothing, really, about the Bronco EV's chances of winning over the actual domestic buyer who's staring down this price war.
Profitability demonstrates operational efficiency, which is absolutely vital in this hyper-competitive market. You can't succeed without it. And while exports certainly contribute, this efficiency provides the margin necessary to invest in the costly, localized R&D for the Bronco EV. It helps prevent the kind of financial bleed seen by other foreign entities that tried to go it alone or didn't adapt quickly enough. So I don't see this as a struggling brand throwing a desperate Hail Mary. I see it as a calculated, targeted launch intended to carry forward the financial and operational momentum they seem to have rebuilt since around 2020. This confidence, I think, suggests Ford understands the limited, premium market segment it's pursuing, even if it's less price elastic than the mass market. So, to conclude my position, Ford has, I believe, correctly analyzed that survival in China requires deep localization and strategic partnerships. By integrating BYD's battery tech, offering these two high-range powertrains, and the advanced Chinese-specific ADAS, the electric Bronco is exactly the kind of sophisticated, tailored product necessary to compete in the premium electric off-road segment. It's engineered, I think, to leverage Ford's existing operational strength, making its path to success credible, even if it comes at a premium.
My skepticism, though, remains tied fundamentally to the market's brutal price sensitivity. Ford has placed the electric Bronco in what I see as a highly perilous price segment. While advanced technology and localization are necessary checkboxes these days, they are just not sufficient, in my view, to overcome the overwhelming price advantage held by powerful local players like the Tank 300, or indeed the rapid innovation shown by brands like Li Auto and others. Until that estimated starting price drops significantly, or unless it launches much lower than expected, the Bronco faces a really steep uphill struggle against a market that has, historically, consistently rejected high-priced foreign challengers in the NEV segment.
And perhaps that inherent tension between the absolute need for advanced localization and technology and the unforgiving domestic price structure, that perfectly encapsulates the dilemma facing all legacy foreign automakers in China today. The material we looked at clearly illustrates that cars can be technically similar, even look similar sometimes, but their prices and their ultimate market fates can be truly fundamentally different.
Yeah, absolutely. Ultimately, I suppose we'll just have to wait and see if the Chinese market is ready this time to reward Ford's deep localization effort over the sticker price. It's going to be fascinating to watch.